Emma Wilson stood in the long security line at London Heathrow Airport. Her hands were shaking as she held her small black carry-on bag close to her chest. The airport was crowded and noisy. But Emma barely noticed the chaos around her. Her mind was focused on one thing. She was finally going to see her father after 3 long years. Emma had been working as a nurse for the past 5 years. She worked double shifts almost every day, taking care of sick patients and helping their families. She loved her job, but it was exhausting. She had not taken a single vacation in all those years. Now, at 28 years old, she was finally taking time off for something very important. Her father, Robert, was in Barcelona, Spain. He was sick and needed heart surgery. When he called her last week, his voice sounded weak and scared. Emma knew she had to go to him, even though they had not spoken properly in 3 years. They had a big fight about her mother's care before she died, and both of them were too proud to apologize first. Emma looked down at her bag and felt her heart beat faster. Inside were the most precious things she owned. There was her grandmother's gold wedding ring, which had been passed down through 3 generations of women in her family. There was also a beautiful pearl necklace that her grandmother wore on her wedding day. Most important of all were the old love letters her father had written to her mother when they were young and dating. These letters were yellow with age, but they were filled with beautiful words of love and hope. These items were all Emma had left of her family's history. Her mother had died 2 years ago, and her grandmother had passed away when Emma was just 15. The jewelry and letters were like a connection to the women who came before her, a reminder that she was part of something bigger than herself. The security line moved slowly forward. Emma had read about the new 2025 carry-on rules online. They were much stricter than before. The government said these rules were necessary for passenger safety. But they made traveling very difficult for ordinary people. Emma had tried to pack carefully, but in her worry about seeing her father, she had made a mistake. Hidden in the bottom of her bag were her medical scissors. As a nurse, Emma always carried them for work emergencies. They were small and sharp, perfect for cutting bandages or clothing in urgent situations. She had packed them without thinking. Her mind focused on her father's condition to remember the new rules. Next, called the security officer. Emma's heart pounded as she walked forward. The officer was a middle-aged man with grey hair and a serious expression. His name tag read James. He looked tired, like he had been checking bags all day, and was ready to go home. Emma placed her precious bag on the conveyor belt. She watched nervously as it disappeared into the X-ray machine. She walked through the metal detector, and the machine beeped green for a moment. She felt relieved. Maybe everything would be okay. Then she heard the words that made her blood run cold. Bag check required. James pulled her bag aside and opened it carefully. His hands moved through her belongings, her clothes, her phone charger, her travel documents. Then he found them. The small silver scissors glinted in the fluorescent lights of the security area. "I'm sorry, miss," James said, holding up the scissors. "But medical tools are not allowed in carry-on bags. Under the new 2025 rules, we must confiscate the entire bag." Emma felt like the world was spinning round her. "Please, sir," she said, her voice breaking. "Those are my grandmother's jewelry pieces. They're all I have left of my family. Can't you just take the scissors and let me keep the rest?" James looked at her with kind eyes. She could see that he felt sorry for her situation. "I understand this is difficult," he said gently. "But the rules are very clear. When we find prohibited items, we must take the entire bag. There are no exceptions." Emma felt tears forming in her eyes. "But, sir, these things are irreplaceable. That ring belonged to my grandmother, and my great-grandmother before her. Those letters are the only ones my father ever wrote to my mother. If I lose them, they're gone forever." James nodded sadly. "I truly am sorry. I wish I could help you, but I could lose my job if I don't follow the rules. The bag will be stored safely, and you can try to claim it when you return." Emma watched helplessly as her bag disappeared into a secure room behind the security checkpoint. Everything she treasured most in the world was now gone. She felt empty and lost as she walked toward her gate. She boarded the plane with nothing but her phone, her passport, and the clothes on her back. As the plane lifted off from London, Emma pressed her face to the small window and cried quietly. She felt like she had lost the last pieces of her family's love, and she didn't know if she would ever get them back. Emma stepped off the plane in Barcelona feeling completely empty inside. The long flight had given her too much time to think about everything she had lost: her grandmother's ring, the pearl necklace, and those precious letters from her father to her mother were all gone. She felt like a part of her heart had been torn away. The Barcelona airport was busy with travelers from all over the world. Emma walked slowly through the terminal, carrying only her small purse. She had never felt so alone in her life. Every step toward the hospital felt heavy, like she was walking through thick mud. When Emma reached the hospital, she found her father waiting for her in the main lobby. Robert Wilson was sitting in a wheelchair, and when Emma saw him, she felt her breath catch in her throat. He looked so much older and weaker than she remembered. His face was pale, and his hands were thin and shaky. The strong man who had raised her seemed to have disappeared. "Emma, my dear girl," Robert said, and tears immediately filled his eyes. "I'm so sorry for everything that happened between us. Thank you for coming to see me." Emma knelt down beside his wheelchair and hugged him tightly. All the anger and hurt from their past fights melted away in that moment. Despite all their problems, seeing her father so fragile broke her heart completely. She realized that their argument 3 years ago seemed so small and unimportant now. "I missed you so much, Dad." Emma whispered into his shoulder. "I am sorry, too. I should have called you sooner." Robert held her hand gently as she told him about losing her bag at the airport. She explained about the scissors, the new rules, and how all of her precious family items had been taken away. As she spoke, fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "I lost everything, Dad," Emma said sadly. "Grandma's ring, the necklace, and all those beautiful letters you wrote to Mom. They're all gone." Robert squeezed her hand and looked into her eyes with love. "Material things come and go. Love," he said softly. "What matters most is that you're here with me now." Those objects were special, but they were just reminders of love. The real love is right here between us. Emma felt a little comfort in her father's words. But the pain of losing her family treasures was still very strong. She spent the first day at the hospital just sitting with Robert, talking about small things and trying to rebuild their relationship. On the second day, something unexpected happened. Dr. Helen Davies, a kind British surgeon who was working at the hospital, noticed Emma helping other patients. Emma's nursing training had kicked in automatically when she saw elderly patients who were scared and confused. "Excuse me," Dr. Davies said to Emma. "I couldn't help but notice how gentle you are with the patients. Are you a nurse?" Emma nodded. "Yes, I work at a hospital in London." Dr. Davies smiled warmly. "Would you mind helping us with some of our elderly patients? Many of them are very scared about their surgeries and treatments. They could really use someone with your gentle touch and kind heart." Emma was surprised by the request, but she agreed. She had nothing else to do while waiting for her father's surgery, and helping others had always made her feel better. Emma began spending her days moving between patient rooms, talking to elderly men and women who were far from home and frightened about their medical procedures. She held their hands, listened to their stories, and helped them feel less alone. One patient especially touched her heart. His name was William, and he was an elderly man from Scotland. His wife had died 6 months ago, and he had come to Barcelona for a special treatment. During his journey, his luggage had been lost, and inside was his wife's wedding ring. "My Mary wore that ring for 50 years," William told Emma with tears in his eyes. "We were married when we were both just 20 years old. She never took it off, not even when she was in the hospital at the end. I was bringing it here to keep it safe with me. But now it's gone. Losing it feels like losing her all over again." Emma sat beside William's bed and held his hand. She understood his pain completely. The loss of something so precious felt like losing the person you loved all over again. She told William about her own loss, and they comforted each other daughters. Emma spent more time caring for William and other patients. Something wonderful began to happen. The act of helping others was slowly healing her own broken heart. She discovered that when she focused on making other people feel better, her own pain became a little easier to bear. Each day, Emma felt a little stronger and a little more hopeful. She began to understand that perhaps losing her possessions had brought her to exactly where she needed to be. Robert's heart surgery went well, and after 3 days, he was recovering nicely in his hospital bed. The doctors said he would need to stay for another week, but his condition was stable. Emma felt relieved and grateful that her father was going to be okay. During the quiet hours while Robert slept, Emma found herself thinking more and more about her lost belongings. She wondered what had happened to her grandmother's ring, the pearl necklace, and those precious letters. Were they sitting in some storage room, forgotten and collecting dust? Or had they been thrown away like garbage? Emma decided to find out. She asked one of the nurses at the hospital about airport security procedures. The nurse, a friendly woman named Maria, told her that confiscated items were usually donated to local charities after a certain amount of time. Many good organizations in Barcelona receive these donations, Maria explained. They help people who have very little. Maybe your things are helping someone who really needs them. This idea both comforted and worried Emma. She wanted to know for sure what had happened to her family treasures. The next morning, after making sure Robert was comfortable, Emma decided to visit some of the charity centers around Barcelona. Her first stop was a large community center in the old part of the city. The building was old but clean, with bright paintings on the walls made by local children. Emma spoke to the director, a kind Spanish woman who explained that they received donations from many sources, including the airport. "We get boxes of items every month," the director said. "Clothing, jewelry, books, personal items. We give them to families who need them most." Emma asked if she could look around, hoping to find her belongings. The director agreed, but after searching through several rooms filled with donated items, Emma found nothing that belonged to her. Her second stop was a shelter for homeless people again. Emma searched through donated jewelry and personal items, but she did not find her grandmother's ring or necklace. The volunteers at the shelter were very helpful, but they had not seen the items Emma described. Emma felt discouraged as she walked to her third stop, a refugee center on the outskirts of Barcelona. His center helped people who had fled their home countries because of war, poverty, or danger. Emma had never been to a place like this before, and she felt nervous as she approached the building dot at the refugee center. Emma met a volunteer named David Thompson. He was a retired teacher from Manchester who had been living in Barcelona for 2 years. David had kind eyes and a gentle smile that immediately made Emma feel more comfortable. I help families who arrive here with nothing," David explained as. He showed Emma around the center. Many of these people have traveled for weeks or months to reach safety. They often lose everything they own during their journey. David led Emma to a large room where families were eating dinner together. Children were playing on the floor, while their parents talked quietly at small tables. Emma noticed that despite having so little, the people in the room seemed to care deeply for each other. Donated jewelry and personal items helped them feel human again. David continued, "When someone gives a woman a necklace or a man a watch, it reminds them that they are still people with dignity and worth." As Emma looked round the room, her eyes stopped on a young woman sitting in the corner. The woman was feeding a baby, and round her neck was a pearl necklace that looked exactly like her grandmother's. Emma's heart started beating faster. She felt sure that this was her necklace, the one that had been passed down through generations of women in her family. Her first instinct was to walk over to the woman and ask about the necklace. Maybe she could explain that it belonged to her family and ask for it back. But as Emma watched the young woman, something stopped her. The woman was speaking softly to her baby in a language Emma did not recognize. Her clothes were worn and old, but she wore the pearl necklace with pride. It made her look beautiful and dignified despite her difficult circumstances. Emma asked David about the woman. He told her that her name was Grace, and she had fled her country with her baby when war broke out. Grace had walked for 3 weeks to reach safety. Carrying only her child and a small bag of food, she arrived here 2 months ago with absolutely nothing, David said quietly. The necklace was given to her by another volunteer. It was the first beautiful thing she had owned in over a year. Emma moved closer so she could hear Grace talking to her baby. Grace was speaking in broken English, and Emma heard her say, "This necklace reminds me that someone, somewhere, cares about people like me. It makes me feel like I am still a real person, not just a refugee." Emma felt tears in her eyes as she listened to Grace's words. In that moment, she realized that her grandmother's jewelry was doing exactly what her grandmother would have wanted, bringing comfort and dignity to someone who needed it most. The items had found their true purpose. That evening, Emma called her friend Lucy back in London. "I thought I had lost everything," Emma said, "but I think I found something much more valuable." Robert was getting stronger every day. The doctors were pleased with how well his heart was healing after the surgery. Emma spent most of her time at the hospital, dividing her attention between caring for her father and helping other patients who needed comfort and support. Robert watched his daughter with amazement. He saw how she held the hands of scared elderly patients, how she listened patiently to their stories, and how she made them smile even when they were in pain. Emma had a special gift for making people feel better, and Robert realized he had never fully appreciated this beautiful quality in his daughter. One evening, as the sun was setting over Barcelona, Robert asked Emma to join him in the hospital garden. It was a peaceful place with flowers, trees, and benches where patients could sit and enjoy the fresh air. They found a quiet spot under a large orange tree and sat together in comfortable silence for a few minutes. "Emma, I need to tell you something," Robert said quietly, his voice serious but gentle. "I kept some of your mother's things after she died. I was afraid to share them with you because they contained difficult truths about our family." Emma looked at her father with surprise. "What kind of things, Dad?" Robert reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. The box was old and worn, with tiny brass hinges that creaked when he opened it. Inside were letters, photographs, and documents that Emma had never seen before. "These are letters from your grandmother, Mary," Robert explained. "She wrote them to me and your mother over many years. I never showed them to you because some of them talk about hard times in our family's past. Emma picked up one of the letters carefully. The paper was yellow and fragile, and the handwriting was in her grandmother's familiar style. As she read, tears began to form in her eyes. The letter described Mary's own journey as a young woman who had very little money, but a big heart. She wrote about working long hours in a factory to support her family, about sharing her small meals with neighbors who had even less, and about finding joy in helping others despite her own struggles. Your grandmother always said that love travels light. Robert read from another letter. She believed that the most precious things we carry are our memories and our capacity to care for others. Material possessions can be lost or stolen, but the love in our hearts can never be taken away. Emma continued reading through the letters, discovering stories about her grandmother that she had never known. Mary had written about losing her own mother's ring during a difficult time when the family had no money for rent, instead of being sad about the lost ring. Mary had found peace in helping her neighbors who were also struggling. I gave away the ring to help a family buy food for their children, Mary had written. At first I felt sad, but then I realized that my mother would have been proud. The ring was just metal and stones, but helping others is what makes us truly rich. The letters revealed that caring for others had always been the family's true tradition. Emma's great-grandmother had been a midwife who helped deliver babies for free. Her grandmother had spent her life helping neighbors and friends in need. Emma's own mother had worked as a volunteer at a children's hospital before she got sick. Emma, Robert said, his voice breaking slightly. I was angry with you about your mother's care 3 years ago. I blamed you for not being there. Enough at the end. But watching you here in this hospital, seeing how you care for strangers with such kindness, I realize that you inherited the most important thing from our family, your grandmother's compasy. Own heart. Emma looked up from the letters with tears streaming down her face. Dad, I wanted to be there more for Mom. I felt so guilty about working so much. Robert reached over and took her hand. Your mother understood. Love. She was proud of you for being a nurse, for helping other people's families. She knew that you were carrying on the family tradition in your own way. Emma thought about her lost jewelry, and how upset she had been about losing those material things. Now, reading her grandmother's words, she understood that the real treasure had been inside her all along. The jewelry wasn't the real treasure, was it? Emma asked her father. Robert smiled and pulled her into a warm hug. No, love. You are, your kind heart, your ability to help others, your compassion. These are the real family treasures. These are the things that truly matter. As they sat together in the garden, Emma finally understood that losing her grandmother's ring and necklace had led her to find something much more valuable, the knowledge that she was carrying on her family's most important tradition of loving and caring for others. Emma's last week in Barcelona was filled with purpose and hope. Her father was recovering well, and the doctors said he would be able to return home to London within a month. Emma felt grateful that their relationship had been healed, but she also felt a strong desire to do something meaningful with everything she had learned. One morning, while sitting in the hospital cafeteria, Emma had an idea. She thought about all the people she had met who had lost precious things. William with his wife's ring, Grace with everything she had owned, and herself with her grandmother's jewelry. She realized that many travelers probably went through similar experiences, feeling alone and heartbroken when they lost items that meant everything to them. Emma decided to organize a support group for people who had lost precious belongings. While traveling, she called it Hearts Without Borders because she wanted it to help people from all countries and backgrounds. She put up notices in the hospital, the refugee center, and several hotels round Barcelona. The first meeting was small. Only 5 people came, including William and a young couple who had lost their wedding photos in a train station. Emma was nervous, but she spoke from her heart about her own experience losing her grandmother's jewelry and how it had led her to discover something more valuable. "We all came here thinking we had lost everything," Emma said to the group. "But maybe we lost those things so we could find something better, each other, and the strength we didn't know we had." The group began meeting every week. People shared their stories, cried together, and found comfort in knowing they were not alone. Emma was amazed by how much healing happened when people felt heard and understood. William became the group's first success story. The elderly Scottishman had been devastated about losing his wife's ring, but through the support group, he began to see his loss differently. Instead of spending his days mourning what was gone, he started volunteering at the refugee center, where Emma had met Grace. "Mary would be proud of me," William told Emma during one of their meetings. "I'm helping people just like she always did when she was alive. I think she would rather see me caring for others than crying over a piece of jewelry." Emma felt proud watching William transform his grief into service. She realized that this was exactly what her grandmother's letters had been talking about, turning loss into love for others. When it was time for Emma to return to London, she felt sad to leave Barcelona, but also excited about the future. Her father promised to visit her soon, and they both knew their relationship was stronger than ever. More importantly, Emma carried with her new friendships a deeper understanding of her family's values, and a peace she had never felt before. Back at work in London, Emma felt like a different person. She looked at her patients with new eyes, understanding that everyone was carrying some kind of loss or pain. She implemented new patient care programs inspired by her Barcelona experience, focusing on treating not just medical problems but also emotional needs. Emma started a support group at a hospital for families dealing with loss. She taught other nurses about compassionate care, sharing what she had learned about the healing power of human connection. Her supervisor noticed the positive changes in the ward and praised Emma for her innovative approach to patient care. Emma also kept in touch with the people she had met in Barcelona. She received regular updates about Hearts Without Borders, which had grown to over 20 members. William sent her photos of himself working with refugee families, and David Thompson wrote to tell her about new programs they had started at the center 3 months after returning to London. Emma received an unexpected package. There was no return address, but when she opened it, she found a beautiful handmade scarf in soft blue and white colors. The fabric was delicate and clearly made with great care. Inside was a note written in simple English. "Dear Emma, thank you for showing me that sometimes losing something helps us find ourselves. This scarf is made with love, just like your grandmother's jewelry was given with love. I hope it brings you warmth and reminds you that kindness travels round the world. Your friend, Grace." Emma smiled as she read the note, tears of joy filling her eyes. She thought about Grace wearing her grandmother's pearl necklace and how it had given the young mother dignity and hope. Now Grace was giving something back, continuing the circle of kindness that Emma's grandmother had started long ago. Emma folded the scarf carefully and put it in her work bag. Every day when she saw it, she remembered that the new carry-on rules had seemed cruel at first, but they had led her to the most important journey of her life. She had reconnected with her father, discovered her family's true values, and learned that the most precious things we carry cannot be confiscated by any security checkpoint. The scarf became Emma's daily reminder that love, kindness, and human connection are the only treasures that truly matter.